33, or at least by my computer it is. And so I do think that we should get started. So I do not have the agenda up in front of me yet. I don't know whether Mike has got it in front of him or not, but I am assuming that the first order of business usually is public forum. And so if there's any public comment, anybody that wants to make a comment about the agenda, that would be great.
This is Ryan. I don't have a public comment except to say that I'm on the call.
Thanks, Ryan.
You must be the telephone.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we don't have any public comments, so let's get right to it. And I would think that the graduation requirements would be the first on the list. So Mary, if you would like to give us some word of encouragement or a suggestion, that would be perfect.
Mike and I had a meeting, and he might want to jump in, but honestly, the changes that we made a few years ago with proficiency base, we're in really great shape. Like, I think if anything needed to happen to this policy, it's just stuff that needs to get cut out, that we, as we were in that zone of, some classes weren't under the proficiency base and some were, but last year's graduating class kind of started that. So if you look at section 2, it's a little bit of a silver lining, because we took out kind of credits, the word credits. Carney talked about experiences. So, I don't really think we need to make a policy change to graduate seniors this year. I don't know, Mike, if you want to jump in on that.
No, I agree. We did meet, and I think we thought this might be appropriate to come before the committee, but we've got the proficiency base, and as long as Mary can establish that the students have met their standards, we should be all set. I was on so if you want to look at this policy further, that's fine. But I was on I've lost everybody. Can everybody still hear me?
Yes.
I was on a call with the commissioner, and she is really not too excited about having kids get hurt throughout this whole thing. Grading can be pretty flexible. She wants to stay connected to students as much as possible, which I feel like we're doing. And then, the kids that we knew at the last grading spot that we feel comfortable with, they can do better probably, but they're not going to be doing worse than they were at that point in time. If there was a few kids that we have to have conversations about that weren't doing anything at that point in time, and we have to have those conversations with their parents to either go to adult ed or do some other work to get their graduation requirements. She and I have the flexibility to do this, but we don't really need to rewrite or check out this policy. From our perspective, we have the experiences, as Mary said. We have
tell people, even though it's not at the apex,
it will help. Since we created it and changed it, we should be all set.
Mary, do you have some high school students that haven't really participated in any kind of learning experience since they've been out?
We're really, our energies have really been kind of just getting everything up and running, trying to connect with everybody. And we're just now kind of this week starting to get to track. And I've met with guidance counselors, and they do a great job anyway with seniors tracking and what we call progress towards graduation. Most seniors are in really great shape. And the good thing is we had finished semester 1, so that's in the books, and or at least been 3 or 4 weeks into semester 2. So any courses seniors needed to have, they either completed it first semester or they were in it this semester. So it's not like this big thing we're missing. Most of them are just finishing up. And as Mike said, with the commissioner's kind of blessing, I think the standard we're looking for, that students participate in what we're asking them to participate in. This week would have been the last round of senior presentations. We did about half the seniors midterm week, and we're moving forward with doing those online, virtually, following up, which piece of that policy the presentation hits three big things. It's the way students show they've met guiding principles. Just the presentation itself is a requirement, and it's where they show, that they've done their community service. So, I feel like we're in pretty good shape. Like I said, taking out Carnegie units was a big one, and I think as we think about future incidents like this, we're in good shape with that policy.
I just don't want to change anything that we'd have to relive everything over again.
No, I honestly, I think we didn't know it at the time, but we made some great decisions that, I feel confident, whenever we can have a graduation ceremony, and I'm, pretty committed to doing that, even if it happens over the summer or, maybe it can still happen on the scheduled date, we'll do it. But I mean, we, with confidence, and a straight face can say that, our students met our expectations. I mean, certainly across the country, every school's facing this, and I'd hate to ticky-tack somebody on something at this point. We know the kids that weren't really in line to graduate at this point anyway.
And so there's really no way to bring them up because they've missed too much, not just during this, but before.
Yeah, exactly. Like when we track progress to graduation, most of the kids that are in the wheelhouse, almost all of them that are in the wheelhouse to graduate, do graduate. We give them whatever supports they need. I talked with counselors probably out of the senior cohort. There's probably about 10 kids at the start of the year, 10, 12 that needed to do a lot, and we're going to throw some extra stuff their way to make sure they can get across the finish line. I see Suzanne's on. She's always been great when we have those kids. It's just too big a bridge to gap to connect them with adult ed to help them to finish through their program, But this is kind of 11th hour anyway for seniors. And so it's, the die's almost been cast at this point. It's just making sure those that were in the wheelhouse engage with us. And I think there's maybe been a little bit of that with students in the first couple of weeks, like, oh, this is going to blow over. I don't really need to do this. But I think that, reality is kind of setting in for them too, that, they need to get going. And I plan on doing a Google Hangout with the whole senior class and senior officers to keep them apprised. I know a lot of them have been reaching out to me and they're worried, they're pretty bummed about, probably no prom or worried about graduating. So I've been trying to allay their fears.
Well, I'm sure you have everything under control, but we should have, whenever, we should have a graduation to them.
Out of control. That's a challenge on a good day, Robin.
Well, I think you can handle it quite well. But I do think I agree with you that we should have some sort of a graduation at some point, even if it is at the beginning of next school year. If we can't do it in the summertime, do something.
Yeah, we got to do something. I feel pretty strongly about that. I don't want to do a virtual ceremony, even if it reality probably will have to be pushed back sometime in the summer, but I hope everybody stays committed to that.
Yep. So the suggestion is to leave that policy alone because it seems to work. Is that all right with everybody?
Good with me.
Ken?
That was Ken.
Oh.
Yeah, that sounds okay to me.
Me too, Robin.
Okay. I think we heard from just about everybody that was on. So we'll leave that right alone. And I'm glad that we did the bulk of the work a year or so ago so that it fits our needs now. So, Mike, the next policy.
Robin, I have a question.
Yes.
I guess this would be directed to Mary. Mary, what we're graduating for kids that's going to go on to college, they've pretty much already been accepted. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, for students applying to college, they would only, it would really go by their first semester grades, which is in the book. And, you know, we're not doing anything with grading that would hurt anybody's GPA. And it's, you know, obviously this is a national issue. It's not like we're some outlier school. I did ask guidance counselors to reach out to some of the main colleges to see what they were talking about. And in my update I sent out on Friday that I emailed and posted had some specifics for seniors in the college process. So, you know, I think, you know, colleges get it. It's not going to hurt any. I don't think it's going to change anything one way or the other.
So that being said, somebody going like a trade school or something, I mean, if they're going on into a trade, that wouldn't be that big of a problem anyway.
No, I don't think it would hurt anybody going on to any type of post-secondary college.
No, because every high school in the United States is facing the same thing.
I understand this, but, you know, we're taking our seniors now and doing this to, like Mary said, seniors are pretty much in the first semester, they're pretty much ready to go. But how about our juniors behind them? Are they going to be lagging behind, or are they going to be up to where they need to be?
You know, I don't think they'll be impacted any differently than any other high school junior. You know, I think it's too soon to know what, you know, impact academically this is going to have on students. You know, and in some respects, they're really learning some unique things right now because of this that we never would have taught. You know, I wish I could answer you one way or the other, but I mean, I just don't know until we kind of see this land somewhere. You know, I couldn't say one way or the other.
No, I guess, Mary, I got to put my trust in you. You've been in this a lot longer than I have, so.
Well, you know, I can say I know our staff is really committed to supporting our students and doing their best. And, you know, I think everybody's just trying to figure this out and do what's right. But I know we got some great people who work hard and have some great skills. So I trust our staff. They're pretty good.
I know one thing that's difficult is the fact that, you know, we seem to go in a 2-week cycle. So all of a sudden it was 2 weeks, and then everybody, as you said, Mary, thought it was going to be over with. And then all of a sudden it was April 24th. And now it looks like May 1st. And, you know, at some point, and I know Mike said last night at the meeting, wasn't really ready to make the commitment to, you know, cancel the rest of the year. But we might want to think about that so that, you know, the kids definitely have an end. Mike, can you put on the next policy?
I'll see if I can do what I just did before.
Just think we'll be really proficient at this at some point.
Yeah, like Josh said, and then we'll be back in action. Well, the next one is the naloxone, I guess, would be real quick, I think. Because I think when we left off with this, Maxine was going to go to a Saturday session. Looks like there was one there on JLC, that page, that it won't be in the nurse's cat office, will be designated area, is able to. And then it looks like there was a procedural thing that she wanted to move from reverse to access. Maxine, can you pipe in and see if that was your change? Right?
Yeah, I can pipe in and say that the team came up with this is all procedure, and it's recognize, respond, reverse, and then
assess.
Yeah, I have it on a different. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, okay. I have it on. Now I've got this giant screen here, and I can't get to my policy. Let's see. 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 Let's I did send the new order of this to Miss Evelyn for so she would have it. I don't know.
I think she's saying put assess before reverse. And I think she's adding the fact that that's what that's called, assess.
No, we have 4 R's.
4 R's?
We went to 4 R's and because it seemed easier. One of the folks at the workshop said, no, refer, no. I can't, how do I get out of this thing? Push escape and then I'll get to my other thing. I'm so computer literate, it's crazy. Oh, wait, here I am.
Respond, reverse, refer, and reverse.
Sounds like all the same thing, doesn't it? I got it right here.
So reverse should be below assess, maybe. So all the so you want to assess first and then reverse, refer. Reverse.
Walks on at school. I got the policy.
She's saying 4 R's. I mean, recognizes one, respond, reverse, and refer.
Yeah.
If I can jump in here, okay. Finally, I think I've got
it. It was. Go ahead.
Seen?
Yes.
That the way it's showing on my copy there, that's the way that it came to me, that reverse would go up in front of assess and then refer would be the end. Okay, but do you think it should be differently?
For main EMS, the first and primary is to assess and support respiration. Narcan comes after that.
So assess needs to go.
On the team had asked for.
But if somebody's actually breathing, you're not likely to give them Narcan.
Not unless they're only breathing 2 times a minute, right?
Right, but the first priority is to make sure that you can provide enough oxygen to them.
Yeah, and we have a little brochure thing that was a flip foldy thing that's really handy and everybody liked. Okay. Emily Poland or somebody at that team had typed it all up. But I will agree with you that you assess first. I mean, that's your first. Is your copy of the procedure up?
Are you looking at what I'm looking at, Maxine?
Your screen. Every time I go out of my screen to look at my policy, I have to go back into the Zoom meeting and click, and then back in. Okay. Who can move that?
I'm moving it, and it says recognize, and then respond. And then what are you saying? Assess should be before reverse, Chris, and then we can switch to.
Yeah, I mean it should be respond. It should be assess.
Right.
Then reverse.
And then reverse.
And then we don't need refer twice. So we'll take out the top refer.
Now the catch to that is that if you've got basically untrained people who really don't want to give rescue breathing, then it is appropriate that they just grab the Narcan and hit them with it.
Right, exactly. And I think that's...
Well, let me rephrase that. To administer Narcan.
I think hit them with it is good. Yeah, because we're supposed to gently insert it into the nose. I'm like, that never happens either. Right. Because you're going to look at... As far as assessing the person, if the person doesn't have normal breathing and they're not responsive and somebody opens their eye and the pinpoint pupils, they may not have any more assessment skills to be able to go further into this might be an overdose or not. So the Narcan is going to be administered, and if it's not an overdose, it's not going to hurt the person to administer the Narcan.
Right.
And then they have to go to, this didn't work. There must be something.
In that reverse section, it says administer Narcan. Second one,
stroke or diabetes.
it should be give instead of given.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Okay. Then give, also need to give him a last trump, which was on the card position, yeah. And then the next one, that next assess needs to go because you assessed first. Who's moving that?
No, just make it one straight list. You don't need extra.
Okay, we can make it one straight list.
You don't want the 3 hours?
Keep it as simple as possible.
Maybe we should not table this one and get it straight, because I don't think we have the right assess. There's another one down here. Two assesses and two
I
refers.
thought those were just duplicates.
Yeah, those are just 2 pages, Mike. One's was the one they want to change, and the other one's the original.
Yeah, they're both labeled number 2.
Yeah, so I think Mike's right. We should see a clean copy.
But a couple of things in that, they are not recommending that anybody pick up anything that might be nearby a person with a possible overdose, simply because if they've taken some of the really strong opioids, some of that can absorb through skin, and the person trying to help them would suddenly be one of the people needing help.
Especially fentanyl.
So I would just drop that seize illegal and non-prescribed opioid narcotics found on victim. That's something EMTs and police can do.
Yeah, I agree.
Should it say something about secure it, not handle it?
Yeah, that's probably reasonable.
Only because you don't want to all of a sudden disappear and have no idea what you're working with.
Right.
Right. I'll sort of list of them anyway.
All right, so is everybody in favor of sending this back and having it cleaned up and then revisiting it next time?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
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 Yeah. Perfect, that's what we'll do.
So, Robin, I have a question. Unfortunately, this goes back to the diploma requirements. Section 1 is about the classes that are no longer relevant. And I wondered if you wanted to think about striking that.
Robin, this is Mary. I didn't know if people were interested. I did mark up kind of the areas that should be deleted that just reference things prior to 2019, which, I think at some point it needs to get done. Does it need to get done tonight? I mean, it's not like it hurts anything. It doesn't impact anybody in the class of 2020, but in terms of keeping an update clean policy, at some point it needs to come out, but it's not like it impacts anybody because it's outdated.
Yeah, when I was reading that over a couple days ago, I thought that might be something that we should remove. But why don't we go with the policy the way it is right now, and then work on that list and revisit it another, either the next policy meeting or even the one after that.
It might even be worth waiting to just, once this gets resolved, to see how it goes with the seniors this year, because we might have, want to make an adjustment in some language if a future situation like this kind of comes up, so we're not kind of chasing after the fact, just to see how this works out, to see is there some kind of caveat or additional language that we need in case we ever experience something like this again. I think could predict, but we might have an aha, as we go through a graduation under these circumstances.
That's fine. We can address it in September or October.
Robin?
Yes.
Mary, you saying something like having a section or a paragraph area for like exigent circumstances during the school year?
Yeah. I think, I don't think it would be any major, I don't think we would change any of the relevant parts, but it might just need to be a sentence or two that kind of covers us.
In the case of,
circumstances.
Yep, I agree.
Chris, does that work for you?
Yep, that's fine.
So those were the policies that we were going to look at and discuss tonight. But there also is information on the pandemic and some of the things that the administrators and Mike have been working on. So Mike, I don't know whether you would like to just give us a synopsis of what you see and changes that need to be made in the future.
Well, you can see things change daily and minute by minute. I did throw together some of those thoughts that I sent to you guys and shared with you about what, how we immediately reacted to this. I am really trying to capture some of the thoughts that Mark has, because he's definitely deeply involved in this. And I know we want to plan for the next piece of it, but we also, our plan was, I think everybody's plan wasn't prepared for what we've gone through with COVID-19. And we will be that much richer for having gone through the experience, unfortunately, in some ways. But yeah, we didn't know we'd prepare 2,000 meals. And now we have a form that Kern can put together in 2 seconds. We can get all the kids' addresses, up to date in a day, and then figure out the number of meals that we put together. We've now got the kitchen that we're using out of the thing. We've gone to remote learning, which is very much, can be more detailed than I think I've put it out in those couple of paragraphs. But in our plan, we just said we'd go to remote learning. Well, now we have more specifics, what formats we might use, and they might change, but we have formats that we would choose, how we would get packets out in the first 2 days, and then continue to distribute things through the buses. Also things that we didn't know would happen in terms of the governor creating this state of emergency that allows us to have these meetings that we have right now, because prior to that, we couldn't even put that in our plan, or we could have, but we wouldn't have known that she would release those guidelines to be able to have virtual meetings as a public body. So it kind of reflected those in those updates and the things that we've gone through. But it's also changed this week. Now we're taking the temperature of the cooks and bus drivers on both sides of the building when they come in the morning. Now we're out, and we were making decisions as superintendents on the best knowledge that we had. Now the commissioner's finally going out to May 1st or whatever it is. And then now we have this committee that either does need to reflect on some of the ideas that the administrators have gone through and how we've planned and thought about this, but then, which will be better the next time. So it needs to go into the plan, but now we have this kind of ad hoc committee that's kind of sitting out, on the edges that could take care of this, and then it comes back to the policy committee, you know, on another level, on another revision, because this is a revision that was done with Alicia and the nurses and I right as we started this endeavor. And, you know, if I read Mark's article this morning, if we now go into a 2-month on, 2-month off, and have to go jump back and forth between, you know, mobilization and transition, our plan will look different. So I don't know exactly how the policy committee would want to move forward, or Chris and Mark, if they have any ideas, Ryan have any ideas on how they'd see this moving forward.
Well, I would think that usually ad hoc committees start at the board level, and the board votes to have an ad hoc committee, and then the chairman does the charge and it goes off on its own. So I don't know if we've got that far yet. Maybe that's the next step, is for the board to decide whether they want an ad hoc committee.
This is Ryan. The chairman decides whether there's a committee and what the charge is.
So let me run part of my thought process here. Anything that this committee is going to develop is going to have to come back through policy, probably. So I wondered if we wanted to do it as an ad hoc subcommittee of policy.
That can work.
Ryan, your thoughts?
Sorry, I was muted. I don't have a preference one way or the other. It's up to you.
So Celia, if you're hearing us, we were thinking of asking you to be on the committee based on your experience.
Yeah, I did see that, and I am hearing you. I saw that email today, and I thought heavily about it all day. And mostly because life's full right now, but I do feel like I would like to be on the committee, and I'm
Right, Ryan did say he would be in trouble for throwing you under the bus.
Yeah, he is.
Okay.
Luckily, I can't go see him, but.
Anyway, so, you know, putting together it's going to be a fairly large cross-body team, because it's going to have administrators, it's going to have staff, it's going to have possibly people from the community, although I think we've got enough medical representation here for that side of it. So I'm fine with it if it's going to generate information coming back to the policy committee. Then the policy committee can make any changes. Some of that is procedure, which we can weigh in on, but is really part of what Mike has to run with.
That's fine with me. I think it makes sense to advise the policy committee based on what the findings are, but ultimately the policy committee will have to make the changes and/or recommendations to the full board.
That sounds good to me.
Robin, Mark?
That's fine. Have you decided who you're going to have on this committee?
I'm going to let Ryan chair it, and then Mark was going to be on it. Celia, you had said you were interested. And then Mike was Maxine, obviously, and Mike said Alicia And who else was it, Mike?
I think I said Leisha, Dean, a couple administrators that would be interested in.
Right.
We talked about Stacy LaSalle as another board member, and if we could add her as a parent. I mean, all these people have multiple levels. I would just quickly read the committee thing that I got from Evelyn is, although unlikely, the board of directors may by resolution at any meeting of the board designate standing, ad hoc, and or special committees of the board. The board may appoint advisory council, functional citizen committees, and honorary groups. The terms of appointment, expectation of service of any advisory or honorary group shall be determined by the board of directors. Sounds like by any meeting that could be.
Where is that from? Is that our specifically laid out in policy?
Article 6.
That's our policy.
Section 1.
What, Mike? Sorry.
It's Article 6, committees, Section 1, creation, in the bylaws.
The bylaws. Okay, thank you.
I don't know if that helps. It just that is the article.
So that sounds like we do need to have the board approve it, but you know, Ryan, I'm not going to hold you up from, you know, getting people together and start talking about stuff.
Okay, that's up to you.
Anything else?
Does Mark need to? Mark, do you want to weigh in on this? Because you've talked about planning, get this back planning because it's important that we've done the things that we've done. But what about the next step? I mean, I'm kind of waiting for CDC. Like today was a decision that I knew we were going to stay out to the 27th. The governor pushed it out to the May 1st. I will probably be coming to the board with some type of a resolution from Penquist saying around the 17th or earlier, what do we want to do? Will there be an end date by the commissioner and the governor to suspend school? We do not want to end school because I don't think that will go over well with taxpayers and those types of people, even though we may do some different things after we kind of have an end date. But anyway, it was to Mark, and if Mark doesn't want to talk to his computer, I get it.
No, I think I can. I unmuted myself. Mostly I'm here to listen. I do think that the committee, you know, should all, as well as just reviewing and updating and looking towards the future, provide some oversight or guidance to the current response, to me would make sense. I think that when you look at the information that's available from public health officials, that it is possible to predict what decisions are going to be made in the length of time that is going to be relevant for the rest of this school year. So not that you necessarily make any rash decisions or big announcements, but I think it's certainly possible to do some planning and be pretty confident as to what the near future is going to bring.
I would think one of those decisions that would be made would be if the governor keeps extending the time that we are supposed to be quarantined. At some point, I would think that it would be, you know, if there's only 2 weeks left of what our school year looks like, it may be ridiculous to go to school for 2 weeks.
I guess you guys have lost me here. What are you forming a committee for?
Chris?
The concept of the committee was to review our pandemic plan, which was written several years ago, and then feed in some of the lessons that we have learned as we've going through this one. And as Mark says, maybe get a little bit ahead of where we are instead of just constantly reacting to the current situation. Maybe start making plans for the transition out of this.
Exactly.
Well, my idea was, Chris, would be stay on the track we're on, and you know the governor's going to shut down now till the 1st of May, according to the news tonight.
Yeah.
And once she says the schools got to open up, we get to go back to school, and if we don't, we lose our state funding.
No, we won't lose our state funding because they've already passed a law that allows us to use alternative education. So we've got that. We can technically carry that all the way into June and graduation. Personally, I think that's what we will be doing.
So what you're saying is, if the governor says we can open the schools back up,
we don't have to.
And we don't have to. We don't have to do that?
No.
I don't think that's right.
If anyone is interested, one of the papers that I sent out described the general way that quarantines are issued, and they're issued in short-term periods, and the idea being that you issue an order, you know, say for 2 weeks or a month, and then at that end of that period of time, you evaluate where you are and decide whether or not to issue another quarantine. It actually comes from the Italian for 4 weeks, and it was what they used for the bubonic plague. So you're never going to get a declaration from the highest levels of government saying, oh, we're going to be shut down for the next 3 months. It'll always be in a shorter period of time. But that doesn't mean you can't project out and know what the time frame is going to be.
And you know how you asked me last night whether I was listening to Betsy Webb and Bangor?
Yes, I do, Mike.
Well, I think that we have made these decisions as superintendents with our school boards with the best of intentions, and I know that it would be easy if the governor and the commissioner would help us out, but I get to gather a piece of what Mark's saying, and I think that we will all join together here pretty soon and come to you and say, because this would be a calendar change. I can't just do a calendar change. So I'd be coming to the board with the best of recommendations of a bunch of superintendents and asking you to do this calendar change, but keep the learning going and get into some professional development for the end of the year, because I think that we'll probably have another surge and I'm not a doctor, but I would say September, November maybe, I don't know. And we're going to have to go back out, try this for a little while, and come back in. So you'll hear from me for our next board meeting.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Was there anybody else that wanted to weigh in on this? If not, we don't have much to discuss. Say that again?
I'd like to be on that committee, though. This is Ken.
Chris?
Sure, Ken. Brian, did you get that?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
That way I can be on more committees there, Ryan.
Should be fun.
Isn't that the name of the game?
Not really, but this one should be very informative.
Yes. Mike, do you have anything else that you want to discuss before we end our meeting?
No, I don't think so.
You've probably heard enough.
Did Maxine say she'd be on that committee?
I think you told her she would be.
I think I was told I was going to be on the committee.
I wouldn't do that.
The word is called voluntold.
You've done it. Come on now. It's all right. I'll be happy to help.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Hearing none, I would say that this meeting is over.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Anybody have any ideas of policies that they'd like to see next? Send me an email or give Mike a call, and we'll go from there.
Safe driving, everyone. Have a good night.
I think Robin, I think everyone's got some that we were trying to update from the legislature, and now we'll go back to a couple of those.
Yes. Yes.